Hi guys, this is John from Proper Coils, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Clapton coil. Guys, the plan is for this series to be a building for beginners, so starting from the very basics right up to the advanced coils. But before we get into any sort of building, we need to talk about battery safety and Ohm's law. A quick search will get you a video on Ohm's law and battery safety. Know your stuff before you do anything. This video is for educational purposes only. Let's get into it. So the first thing we need to do is calculate the resistance of the coil we're making today. So I highly recommend downloading the Vape Tool app. The Vape Tool app will help you calculate your resistance. So click on Coil Calculator. Choose whether it's going to be a single or a dual. So we're going to be doing a dual today. Choose your coil type, which is going to be Clapton. Choose your core's material. So the core is going to be nichrome Ni80. And the gauge is going to be 24 gauge anarchist wire. For the outer wrap, we're going to be using nichrome Ni80, and the gauge is going to be 34 gauge twisted messes wire. As a general rule of thumb, the gap between the core and the outer is generally between 8 and 10. The inner diameter of coils are going to be 3mm. The leg length I normally leave at 10mm. Number of wraps is going to be 5, and calculate. So the resistance is going to come out at 0.207, so 0.2 we're going to be aiming at for these dual coils. Right guys, so what do we need to build the coils? The first thing you're going to need is some fishing swivels. I use 3 fishing swivels. The reason for it is if your first one fails, you've got 2 behind as backup. I also use an LT 3D printed tower from USA ohm meters, purpose built, it's height adjustable. But before I got that, I literally used to clamp a piece of wood to the table and attach my swivels. That done me for a long time. You're also going to need a drill. I use a cordless battery drill. The reason I use a cordless battery drill is it is easy to control. You can adjust the speed in small increments. If you're using a corded drill, it is a lot faster, but I'd rather have more control than speed. When you are setting up your fishing swivels, it's important to have your fishing swivels the same height as your chuck. It's easier to work that way. Also, I am left-handed and I have the swivels on my left and the drill on my right. Hand tool wise, you're going to need some flush cuts. You're going to need some ceramic tweezers. You're going to need a screwdriver for fitting your coils. You're going to need nylon pliers for fixing any imperfections in your coils. You're going to need a regular set of pliers. You're going to need some scissors to cut your cotton. You're going to need some cotton. You're going to need something to build on, so we're building on the diesel RTA. Plenty of room for 2 3mm coils. The mod we're going to be using is the DNA 250C Odin from Dovpo and Vapid Bogan. The juice we're using is Ule Bolu from Coil Turd. You're going to need a coil jig to wrap your coils. And again, the wire we're using for the core is anarchist wire 24 gauge, and the wrap is going to be twisted messes 34 gauge, all American wire, all high grade, high quality materials. Right guys, the first thing we need to do is cut 12 inches of our core wire, and after you've got your 12 inches you need to put an L shape on the end and insert it into the chuck. Make sure when you're inserting the wire into the chuck that it's centered, and then grab your pliers, hold tight and run the drill for 2 to 3 seconds. And that will straighten the wire for you. Next, insert into the swivels, make a U shape and grab your pliers and twist 3 or 4 times. That's it, secure. Now you can hold the drill with your hand. I prefer to hold it with a clamp because it's more secure. So if you're using a clamp, stretch the wire straight and clamp it down. Next is to wrap the coil. One useful tip for you if you haven't used these before, they are spool tamers. You can get them on Amazon, very cheap, a pack of 20 for like €7 or £7 even. Very useful. It'll stop mountains of time accumulating trying to get your spool back to where it was. So to insert your wrap, what you want to do is, well, there's 2 things you can do. You can wrap it around the end of the L you made and work from there, or you can insert it into a gap on the end of the chuck, which is what I normally do. And once you get in, just run it slowly for a few revolutions until it's secured. So before you start wrapping, you need to be thinking 90 degrees is where you want to be. If you're further than 90 degrees with your spool, it's going to be spaced too much, and if you're less than 90 degrees, it's going to overlap on itself or back up on itself. So 90 degrees, start very slow. After 2 to 3 inches, if you're happy with what you have, speed up the drill and you can run at full speed then. And we'll give it a go. I'm also usually about 6 to 8 inches away from the core wire when I'm wrapping. Now if the wire does back up on itself, you can reverse the drill, run it until the error has gone, and then start again. Just start slow and then build your speed up. When you get to the end, because a Clapton wrap can move, especially when you're releasing it from the drill and the swivel ends, I like to back up the wrap about ½ an inch, just so it's secured on both ends. Snip it off. Now, next thing is just snip at the end, at the swivel end. And release with the chuck. And we have a Clapton length. So the next thing is to wrap the coils. Right guys, the next thing to do is cut your length into 4 to 5 inch pieces. And what I like to do is make a little U shape at the end and give it a squeeze, and this stops the Clapton wrap moving when you're trying to wrap your coil. So grab your coil jig and hold it between your index finger and your thumb and bend a U shape, and then get your other piece of coil jig, make sure it's on the right setting, and start coiling. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I normally go one extra wrap, and the reason I go one extra wrap is the first one is usually, as you can see there, there's a slight gap in the first one. So what I usually do is I pull out the first wrap, making the rest of them perfectly tight, and then I pull it back to 90 degrees, or roughly 90 degrees, and then I bend the leg level with the other one. Clapton coil. There we go. And do the same with the other one. Right, let's get these coils in the diesel RTA. So what I had to do was space the coils because they are fairly skinny, so I spaced them out so I won't have any shouldn't have any difficulty getting them to fit in the diesel RTA. So it's a postless deck, so we're going to go with 4.5 millimeters. See where that gets us. Now, one thing I find people asking me is, why is my resistance jumping about? And it's usually one of two things. So it's usually they haven't burned in the coils long enough, so they might have glowed them out once and that was it, and the resistance hasn't settled down because of that, or it's because their leg lengths are not tightened enough. So make sure before and after you burn in your coils that you have retightened your screws, because it can loosen from heating and cooling down the coils. And make sure you thoroughly burn in your coils. Now these should be fine because they're spaced, so they're not going to take a lot of burning in, but just make sure they're well burned in and the resistance should not be jumping about. And also, when you're fitting your coils, try not to have your batteries in your mods, because nobody wants to accidentally hit their button while they're trying to install the coils and end up burning their fingers. The resistance is coming out at 0.193, so we weren't far off with the 0.2. Pretty good. The simple techniques you learn making Clapton coils will help you when you try and make more advanced builds such as aliens and stagger fuse Claptons and all those crazy builds. So it's important to learn the basics, get the basics down, practice them, get to a stage in your building career where it's second nature, easy peasy. If you like the content, hit the like button. If you want to see more build tutorials, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I've been John from Proper Coils. Good luck and take care.